started. First of all, welcome everybody to our panel discussion. End of year metrics, telling your team's story with data. My name is Nick Nepomuceno. I'm a senior enterprise customer success manager at Litho. Say that 3 times fast now. And I'll be your host for the next hour or so. Today on our panel, we're joined by a team of superstars when it comes to end of year reporting and creative operations. We will have the chance to take a peek at their reports, see what their creative teams are reporting on and why, and have a conversation about the benefits of reporting and showing all of the amazing work that creatives do. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our panelists. First, we have Kelly Case. Kelly is the Senior Manager of Design Team at Texas Roadhouse. The Texas Roadhouse in-house marketing department supports 4 different brands with over 700 stores in 49 US states and abroad. Those brands are Bubba's 33, Jaggers, Butcher Shop, and Texas Roadhouse. Their team consists of 15 creative team members, including designers, creative services, and traffic specialists. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jeremy Kentner. He is the design manager for Penn Entertainment. As part of the brand marketing team at Penn, Jeremy and his 19 creatives are responsible for creative marketing materials for 41 retail casinos and racetracks, a rewards program, and efforts with 4 online gaming apps. Thank you, Jeremy. And then lastly, we have Peter Skopheimer, who is the manager for marketing operations and creative at Children's Minnesota. If you're not familiar with Children's Minnesota, it's a region pediatric healthcare system serving mostly Minnesota, but also North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Any of their 5,000 employees can make requests to Peter's team, which consists of 38 team members who handle everything from marketing, advertising, PR, internal comms, web, social, and so on. First of all, thank you guys all for agreeing to participate today and even sharing some snippets of your reports. This is meant to be an open discussion on at end of year reporting. And yes, we met before this. We had a prep call so everybody would meet everybody else and kind of get a little feel for the topic. But everything from now on is off the cuff. Nothing's rehearsed. We are recording this. We will make the recording available afterwards. And if you have questions, you can pop the questions in. We'll open the time at the end for attendees' questions, okay? So one of the reasons why we decided to do this is because last year we did a survey and we talked to 120 different creative and marketing professionals. We found that 95% of them were tracking metrics, but 83% of them had only started in the past year and 63% of them had just started in the past 6 months. So we know that people are interested in metrics, but a lot of times they are not sure what to do with it, how to present it, and who to present it to. So I do want to start by doing what everybody here wants me to do, which is taking a look behind the curtain and seeing and sharing what some of the reports that you guys have put together look like. We will start with you, Kelly. Let's take a look at a report from Texas Roadhouse. So tell me a little bit about this report. Tell me a little bit about, without going into too much detail, more of like, who was it for, who created, why, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. I created these reports. So I exported it from the Litho report and then made graphs in Illustrator since I am a graphic designer. But I really wanted to report on like the total amount of jobs. I wanted to separate it by brand. We have drop downs for like material and subject. So I really wanted to kind of keen in on some of that stuff, like what are our most requested material, what was our most requested subject, so then we could kind of use some of that data and kind of help our stores, help our regions, really looking at rushes and also looking at when our designers are the busiest and when maybe some downtime, maybe not so much downtime, but when we have a steady workload instead of a crazy workload. Some of the data I was surprised by, and some of it I was not. So we share with director, C-suite, and then we also share with our designers, our field marketing team. So we share it across all boards. So pretty transparent with the data that we find.
Awesome. One thing that I like to kind of you set a tone here is that, you know, reporting within Litho is great, and you're actually using some of those visuals that you have in Litho in your report together with other visuals, meaning, you know, the reporting Litho, so a lot of times it's used as the data set that then you use to build reports that are a little bit more visually pleasing. So it's not like you're just downloading the report from Litho and sending to people. No, you're targeting, you're making a little bit more more specific to the people that you want to see and a little bit easier to digest. So love that. Let's take a look now at some of Jeremy's reports. Jeremy, talk to me. Where did this come from? What are we looking at, and who did you present it to?
Yeah, so we report out on these on a quarterly basis, which frankly makes the year-end reporting a lot easier because it's the same type of cadence that we report on. I would say that the thing that really initiated this was just a backlog of projects that were kind of falling behind, and we were trying to figure out why. And once we dug into it, we realized that, you know, we're at 42% of rush jobs that are being opened right now for our team. And, you know, our SLA right now is 8 days. So it's a very short turnaround as it is. When you cut that in half, it really tends to bottleneck at the volume that we have. So we really tried to pull this report by property so that we can have individual conversations with those stakeholders and try to figure out, you know, what was the reason for it. So, you know, in some cases, if they're launching a new program or a new restaurant, or, you know, racing just started up at one of the properties, there could be reasons why some of these are coming through. In some cases, it's just lack of planning. So really trying to just manage expectations on both sides. That's what really brought the rushes one into place. Projects closed by designer, that's just for us to kind of manage volume. You can see that those pie slices are fairly even, with the exception of two superstars that are on the team that frankly I don't know how they close as many projects as they do. But really just trying to evenly load the team, make sure that nobody's feeling completely overwhelmed. And I say projects loosely because, as Nick will point out often, that projects could mean anything. It could be one poster, it could be 50, you know, display ads that we're trying to push out for 4 different apps. So it really does vary, but when you really average it out with the volume that we have, it's a pretty level example of what we have. The proof review, and the average time in review, those are also more of an accountability report to pull, because we have standard level or service level agreements in place with our property partners that dictate how much time they have to review proofs, how many rounds of revisions they get. You can see the proof revisions are actually very well, because it's a three version is basically our normal SLA. And then the proof time, however, is kind of all over the map. So they really get 3 days total to review, 2 on the first proof, 1 on the second proof. And it's really just trying to figure out why some projects may be being closed late. So what I love about Litho is the data set is so full and so robust that if you want to find out anything about your production studio or creative studio, literally anything you want to find out, you can from the data that you pull. So it's all of these have come out of other conversations that I've had trying to either justify or, you know, rationalize or something like that. These reports get shared with our property partners. It gets shared with up to the VP level on my team, and she shares with the CMO. And then there's also we share this with the designers on a quarterly basis as well. So
awesome. And I love here that you're showing this is like a Q3 report, right? But basically, if you're doing reporting every quarter, putting that together that end of year makes things a lot easier at the
yeah,
end, because you've already prepared that targeted audience throughout the year to what they should expect at the end, and then delivering on that as well.
absolutely.
Pete, we're gonna go to Children's Minnesota now.
All right. So this is a report that that I pull. It goes to we have as a department. So our department is made up of a lot of channels. So public relations, internal communications, digital, social, and then traditional marketing and advertising. So when we present sort of our end of the year information, we have a lot of people reporting. It's a lot of information. And to be honest, creative operations is probably one of the lower interest levels from the C-suite people. So I get about 5 minutes to get through this part of the presentation. So need to make the data really high level and just really quick and easy to get. So one of the things that we focus a lot on, and it's really easy. Anybody can pull a report on the number of requests that come in. And for our group, this is actually a particularly interesting one because we've got Litho set up in our organization that anybody can put in a request in Litho. So if you're working at the welcome desk, if you're the head of the cardiovascular group, anybody can put in a request. So we have a team, we call it the triage team, that every day goes through the new requests that come in. We clean them up and we go through them, and we just sort of make sure that we have enough information to be able to hand off to our creative team to get the job done, because a lot of the people who are putting in requests aren't super marketing savvy all the time. So sometimes we get some pretty strange requests that come in. So for us, one of the biggest things is, how many requests is the triage team, managing throughout the course of the year. So that's a big one, just to make sure we're getting credit for the volume of work that we handle. And then just a percentage year over year, which is a pretty obvious one that we just keep on getting busier and busier. And then one of the areas, so because we have work that comes from so many different areas, we just like to highlight, where the majority of the work is coming from, just to make sure the areas that are sending us the most work are the areas that really line up with our strategic priorities. We also track the number of stakeholders that are in Litho. So we have 960, I believe, active stakeholders. And the reason that we show this is just, when we went to try to get Litho, we had to make a case for it. And we want to make sure that the leaders know that this is an actively used tool in the organization. So that's almost 20% of the organization that's using Litho. And then within our department, just where's the work coming from, the different channels. And then I add this because some of the feedback that we get, and I don't know if other groups get this, is that there should be more requests that maybe we turn down, or we decline, or we redirect to other places. And it makes it sound really easy to do. And so I wanted just to capture that we do try to do that as much as we can, but when you compare it to the total number of requests, it's a pretty small number that we're able to actually decline or redirect. So that's about the pitch that I'm able to give when I'm in front of the senior leaders in our group.
I love how targeted this slide is, and like you said, you had like 5 minutes to make your case. You put all this information in one slide. You knew who the target was. You knew what would be important and what would kind of highlight your team to them. And I agree with you. There's a lot of power in declining requests or redirecting them, because hey, not everybody can do this. Another thing that I love is that you highlighted here. We tend to say Litho it's mostly for the creative teams, right? But that doesn't mean only the creatives are using. You have a fifth of your whole organization using the tool. It's the most beneficial for the creative because you can organize stuff. So love this. So now that we've seen a little bit of everybody, let's chat about it. Let's talk about a little bit of the different ways of doing reporting, the different ways what you guys have gained from it. To start with, Jeremy, you mentioned the robustness of the data, how litho you can go in and all the data is there. But I want to talk about data hygiene, right? We want to make sure that the data is usable, that you're collecting the right data. What are some strategies and best practices that you guys would recommend for people who maybe are like, okay, I've been doing things for a bit, but I want to step up my game on reporting. What are some of the things that I can do to make sure that my data is real and can be used? Whoever wants to start. Jeremy, I saw you coming out of mute, so I'm going to call you.
I mean, for me, I think the data's there in Litho. I'm not going to lie. It might take you a few times pulling the right report to get the numbers that you're looking for to make them accurate. Like, for example, I pull the rushes report that I pull is based on project creation date, but the close report that I pull is based on project close date. So they're essentially the same report. There's one filter that changes, and that's by date, and it's the data was created versus the data was closed. So it might take a little bit to really make sure you're getting the right information that you want. The nice thing about it is once you have it, you can save it and it's always there. And it makes it super easy to be consistent, and it's been super helpful for us because before we had Litho, the reporting was a struggle. And being such a data-driven company, it was hard. I mean, it's really hard to justify the cost of before Litho and motion and everything that came with it. But now it's easy. It took a long time to be able to get headcount approved, and now it's easy because we have the numbers to back that up.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say that, it's an evolution. The more reporting that you do, I think the more you realize what you don't know. And so if you think that you're going to get to a point where you're going to have the perfect reporting, it's probably not going to happen, because you should always be evolving your reporting based on maybe what you learned from the previous reports. And so our Litho rep has been really helpful in saying, okay, yeah, we need new fields. We need to add some new custom fields. We need to have some other ways. We need to change our intake form maybe a little bit so that we can capture the right data in order to run those additional reports that we now know that we need.
Yeah, I
I will
agree.
shout out Sarah and Veronica as your your rep and your former rep. They're awesome. Sorry, Kelly, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. I just agree. I think those custom fields are so important. I mean, that's how we are able to pull material, subject, and I feel like it's so easy to pull those reports, and you can make as many different reports as you want, and you can share those reports. I do share reports. So I just think it's really easy. Same thing as Jeremy. It was before we really didn't have data, essentially. Like, you had data, but it was really hard to pull. We were using Trello at the time and we just outgrew it. But yeah, it's really easy. Love it.
I think there's a lot of mystery that goes, like creative operations. We know, again, we're a little bit of an island. And so a lot of the other groups don't know exactly what we do and how much volume we have. So, it's a lot of what we think is super obvious information is not obvious to everybody else, even within our department, much less the rest of the organization. So, I would say, feel free to start with some super basic reports, because I think you'll be surprised at the response you get from the people who read them.
Mhm. I totally agree. I feel like for designers, you don't really have a lot of data. And then with Litho, you do have data to kind of back you up. So that's kind of nice.
I know Jeremy makes a lot of use of that first time from acceptance to first proof sent. That is a big one for a lot of people. So talking about that, I know, Jeremy, that one's important to you. Maybe what are some of the other, like, we saw some of your reports, but I know we didn't see everything. What are like some of the big KPIs that you like to track, and like why, how do you use it? And was it your idea, or was that something that somebody told you, hey, we would like to see this?
Kind of a combination. I mean, the general KPIs that we have, at least from my perspective, are the rush jobs, how many projects we're closing, the time in review, time to first proof, all those ones that were on there. But additionally, there's probably a dozen more reports that I share that don't go to everybody. They just go to more targeted people. One is specific to direct mail advertising, trying to figure out if we can switch some of those to email, which is a big cost savings. We're trying to determine how many collateral jobs we're doing on a monthly basis to see if some of those could be cut back for cost savings. And there's a lot of things that we can pull from Litho that we didn't have access to before very easily, which makes it a tool that not only I like using, but my senior leadership loves, because they can come to me and say, how many direct mail jobs did we send out late that had to go first class last month? And I can pull that data and tell them that, which is obviously a big cost issue for us. So, it's endless. I mean, the amount of reports I pull is probably a lot more than a lot of others, but there's a lot more people that are interested in the data here, where I didn't have this anywhere I've been before. So,
Peter or Kelly,
Yeah.
any specific KPIs they like to track, or?
Well, I loved talking to Kelly and Jeremy just over the last few days about the quick turn requests, because it we talked earlier, just made me feel a little bit better about it. But I think that that's maybe a more universal issue
oh yeah,
for people. And I think that if anybody was wondering what next report to run, that might be a great one, because if you're trying to figure out where your work is getting stalled or why it's getting stalled, I'm guessing that these last minute requests or the compressed timelines for requests are probably the culprit in the majority of the cases. So if you're able to capture that information and share that with the rest of your department, I think that's a case you can make. Jeremy talked about how our teams are really held accountable for timelines, but it's hard for us to turn around and hold them accountable, and that is one way we can do that.
absolutely.
We did the same with the rushes, and then we shared that with our field marketing team, and it has helped us tremendously. We have way less rushes from the field marketing team, just being transparent with them and showing that data file. No one wants to see their name as the one with the most rushes. So it does help things for sure.
Yeah, we do the same thing. So we send out what we call a scorecard, and they don't like to be at the bottom. So it'll make a difference.
Accountability, right? It allows you to make people accountable and showing them that, sometimes the type of request that they're making, because it's rush all the time, might be an issue. And Kelly, you mentioned that when we were talking about your report, but can you guys share any specific instance where there was a strategic revelation from data or from a report that significantly impacted your team's approach or any decision making?
The rush jobs for sure. And then looking at when our busy times are, when our kind of standard times are. That wasn't something that I was kind of surprised by, but it actually kind of solidified. Oh yes, we're busy. Definitely designers are busy during here. We need to watch our rushes here at the end of the year because of this. So that was nice. I do want to compare after this year, we'll be able to compare last year to this year. So really interested to see what that increase is. I've seen from Q3, we're already up 22% in projects. So I think that's going to really help us in the future to be able to, either get more contract work or get another person for the team. But I think being able to compare that year over year is going to be awesome. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, for our team, one of the challenges that we've got is, we do a lot of projects with soft deadlines. We have a lot of patient family material that we work on, and a lot of things that are more support material within the organization. And so we get these soft deadlines, and so projects tend to stall out. So we run something called the stall report, and that's kind of similar to what Jeremy was saying and Kelly. We get these projects that are stalled, and we use Litho to message and try to get them unstalled or figure out what's going on. But the second that we created the stall report and sent that out to the broader team, and people saw where, how many of their projects were stalled. It was amazing how many projects got unstalled within a day or two of that report going out. So I think that you don't want to publicly shame people, but sometimes there's like some accountability that comes with being able to share that with the larger group.
Any how do I say that? Any kind of advice that you guys can give to people that are trying to uncover some strategic revelations through that data? And you guys mentioned, take a look at your rush. First of all, you might find some stuff. Any other places that you can see making the difference for people to look at on the reports?
You could do like a job type, essentially. Like we've noticed, like, okay, we're having a lot more digital work, which involves like more video, more editing. So that takes longer than a print piece. So I think you could start pulling some job type stuff, because I think you'll find some interesting things about that. We were thinking, oh, we're seeing a lot more digital, but once I pulled the numbers, I was like, oh no, actually it's a lot of our jobs are more digital than print now, which makes sense, but it helps when you're trying to think of that level of effort with your designers and who's ever producing that too. So
and let's talk about a little bit about something that we've touched upon on targets of the target audience, because that's super important, right? It kind of defines how a report gets made and all of that. What would you say are some of the different strategies that you've used? Like, what are you reporting up versus down, and who are you showing what and why type of question, Jeremy?
So for me, it's, I don't have a lack of people asking for data. It's not so like, we have a CRM team, and the VP of CRM loves data. So he will reach out to me. And one of the newest reports we're pulling is the direct mail report. So it's actually potentially changing the whole process for direct mail jobs next year based on some of the numbers I've been able to pull for him. They use a different tool right now to manage their projects, and they're onboarding into Litho hopefully next year. And all of it was driven out of data we were able to pull from Litho, and that doesn't even affect his team. That's just the general projects that touch the creative studio. So I think you tailor it to who you want, who's asking for the data. For the design team, they want to know the rushes. They want to know how many projects they're closing. For the properties, they want to know how many projects were closing on time, how many first proofs were delivered on time. Those are the kinds of things that they want to know. I generally roll most of that up into one deck because I think it's important to be transparent across the board, especially when you're talking about people that work together on a daily basis. I don't keep all of that information in the report that gets sent to the CMO. Some of that gets pulled out. It's more high level. It's, general numbers instead of broken out by properties. So it doesn't, I don't dump a whole load of data on her. It's more pretty and packaged and kind of shows what we do, but that's about it. So
we do the
Sorry,
same.
go ahead, Cal.
We do the same. Recently started doing some team, we call them alley rallies. So the restaurants do alley rallies every morning, and it's kind of like a team boost, a morale boost. So like we had ours today, and I like to pull just like that. Okay, in a week we did 84 projects. Great job. It's a great, you can do that great morale kind of booster, and it does just let everybody know like, hey, we completed 84 projects this week. That's awesome. You know, it's nice to give yourself kudos because I feel like a lot of times we do forget to celebrate the wins, and it's kind of like, oh, well, next project, what's the next project? And we got to celebrate the wins. You have to do that because it just helps everybody be in a better mood, honestly.
That is
Mhm.
awesome. Trying to excite
That's
everybody.
great.
Yeah. Pete,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you can pull, you know, if I pull more operational type of reports, you know, we do this triage step. So, you know, every morning, we have a small team that gets together, does a little stand up. And I don't even export it. You know, I have a report, you know, in Litho that I just pull up on screen and just share it right there on screen. Or sometimes I maybe will export it into an Excel file or something really gritty that doesn't look nice, but it just has the information on there so that we can just kind of make sure we've got somebody assigned to it, and we kind of know what the hot projects are on a day or in any given week. So sometimes it's great to have these really kind of beautiful reports. They're fun and they make you feel good, but sometimes you can just you know, pull some down and dirty reports just to be able to get some information communicated to the right people.
great. One quick thing that I want to ask you guys, because we have here 3 teams, very different types of report pulling, a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences too. Do you guys think there is a minimum amount of team members that you have to start pulling those reports? Is there a minimum of projects that you have to start doing yearly reports and stuff like that? What are your guys' thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, data is data and a fact is a fact. And I think it's always good to pull data and look at it. I mean, I'm kind of a data nerd anyway, so that could be why, but
It's
I just think it's essential. It can help you prove a point or help you get more help or move the needle in a different way, you know.
yeah, I would say the, when the VP of CRM first asked me to pull the direct mail report, his response to me was, "There's no way that's right." And I said, "Well, I mean, the data doesn't lie. Like this is it. Like this is what you're looking at is accurate." So that's the kind of change agent the data can be, because now that's completely basically flipped their process. I'm hoping for next year. So um yeah, I mean that's what it can do for you when you get the right people and the right data.
Awesome.
We've got a small team. You know, I've got 3 designers, and then we use some freelance and some contractors who are actually tied into Litho. But it's important for us because if one person, when you've got a small team, if you've got one person who's just overloaded for a week and just can't take on, you know, the quick turn requests, or, you know, you're really frozen in terms of the amount of work you can do. And not, I know, you know, there's a lot of challenges. Like Jeremy's got a much bigger team. I think if we had a bigger team, it might be easier to, you know, if somebody was out, if they're on PTO, or if they were overloaded, to sort of distribute that work a little bit easier. But when you've got a small team, you don't have as many options. So it's important to really know what's out there and what's coming and where everybody's at, because it can really shut the team down if you're not ready for it.
And just before we go to everybody's questions, I know that we have a few questions already popping up. I just want to hear from you guys. Tell me 1 or 2 things that you've implemented, changes that you've made, or that you're planning to implement for the next year based on the reports that you've gotten in either the year before, what you've seen so far this year. Start with Kelly.
I can go. We have started doing level of effort, so I would like to start pulling reports on level of effort and seeing kind of that time. You know, you think you know what it is, but I think the data will kind of show something differently on that. And then we also want to start pulling reports on like how often do we get jobs in early, on time versus late? Because you know you never hear about the jobs you get early. But I can pull data on that. You always hear about the ones that are late. So I kind of want to pull the positive too. So those are kind of my
That is
things that I
important.
would like to definitely start pulling for next year. Again, I want to see that last year versus this year, that real difference and what that increase is, because I think that's gonna help us a lot. But yeah.
Awesome. Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely changes we're going to implement next year. One, hopefully, is the DM process. There's a couple other that we're talking about right now, implementing based on some reporting. And one that we're ready to go and starting in January is we're changing the process for launching requests and accepting requests within Litho. So we're kind of set up weird right now where the stakeholders are actually accepting their own requests, which is not working out great. And we're seeing that because, there's a lot of jobs being late because we're asking questions after the first proof started. So it's a trickle down effect, not getting the right information on those projects initially. So we're changing that process, making sure that there's a lot more, building in some more review time to increase the SLA because of the amount of jobs that are closed late. There's some things that we're implementing to really hopefully make the numbers look better on both sides, because we're realizing that our SLAs probably aren't long enough at this point. So yeah, I mean, those are the two big ones that I can speak to.
Yeah, I think the idea of level of effort that Kelly had talked about is great. We don't do, I'd be curious with Kelly or Jeremy or anybody on the call, what people do for time tracking. We don't do time tracking at all. And so I think for a lot of level of effort and a lot, if we really wanted to get great data on where we're spending our time, that's probably the tool to do it. But I feel like we're a ways away from being able to actually make that happen. But it is something that we talked about trying to at least initiate in 2024.
Mhm.
You
don't
could have.
track-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
I would say we don't track time. We just do level of effort. It is something we've thought about. Is it one versus the other? Do you do both? So, but right now we're just trying to do the level of effort.
This could have not been a better segue to the first question from the attendees. The first question is, how do each of these brands handle level of effort with their projects? Is there a one size fits all, or everyone gets this data in a different way? So obviously we kind of just went through, Kelly just started doing level of effort, but within the system, right? We're still measuring level of effort. Maybe we're not using the level of effort feature, but we're still measuring level of effort by maybe, what is it, number of projects? How do you guys are measuring it?
I mean, we're doing the level of effort now, which actually has helped tremendously, honestly, when looking at workloads and the team and who has how much workload. We put level of effort. We essentially have different templates, like one to say 0 to 4 hours, 4 hours to 8 hours. And we kind of assign it to each job that gets assigned out. But then the designer has the accountability to go in and change what that time is. So there is at least something there, and the designer might agree with it, or if they don't agree with it and they think, oh, this is going to take me 8 hours, not 4 hours, it's their responsibility to kind of go in there and change that, because they know that all traffic and the design managers are looking at that to kind of figure out, okay, where is the workflow going to kind of ebbs and flows. Okay, this person has 20 hours for this day, but this person only has 4 hours. We're going to move this to this person, this to that person. So that's how we did that. I think putting that on the template has helped us tremendously, because at first we tried it without doing that. And it just kind of became cumbersome for the designers, but it has helped to put it on the template. So at least there is some sort of hours dedicated to that.
Awesome.
So Kelly, do you have like a standard timing document then, for each, deliverable has, this is the range, that's what you plug in for your level of effort, or do you sort of look at it as a case by case basis?
It's a little, I mean, I do have a document. I put an Excel document. So for like our national promos, I did an Excel document for our traffic team. And I kind of put like, okay, post sign's going to take 4 hours. A rollout guide's going to take 8 hours. So I did kind of allocate some time to each of those. And then like our one-off store jobs, most of those are an hour. But if a designer has to start from scratch or it's multiple pages, yeah, then it kind of has to be more than that. So those become kind of a one-off basis essentially. But yeah, essentially I started with kind of like, okay, this is like a standard for a flyer. This is standard for a TV slide.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've got
Jeremy,
challenges, each designer, has their strengths and weaknesses, and, some, are very, maybe better conceptual, designers, and some are just kind of workhorses. And so, sometimes there gets to be a little defensiveness, where some people say, it takes me longer to do it than you've allocated, and you just have to say that's okay. Sometimes you just know that everybody's a little bit different.
For sure. I definitely said it's not black and white. It's not a set time. It's okay if you go under, it's okay if you go over. I definitely have that mindset too, because I think people, when they see that number, they get so fixated on, oh, I can only do it for 8 hours. And it's like, no, you can go over, you can adjust it. You can adjust it. It's not like it's that number is even set in stone. So that's one thing great about Litho is you can change that number. It doesn't have to stay at what we assign it either. So
Jeremy, I know that you are like very much looking at projects and to do that level of effort. What is your experience with like number of projects versus actual level of effort or anything like that?
So our projects are based on project type SLA.
Okay.
And the level of effort is assigned to each task based on that. So that, like I said, that our projects vary from one poster to 30 digital files for one property. So
yeah,
the level of effort's the same on both of those projects. So it's really hard for us to track that because there's no way for us to understand what's going to be asked for in that request. The good thing is the poster takes 15 20 minutes. The other one could take 3 hours. So it really depends on how busy the designers are at that time to get the workload even, but that's one of the more difficult things for us to do. If you average it out, I would say the projects kind of level themselves out based on who works on what. But in general, it's really hard to track on level of effort with us.
Gotcha.
Just with the sheer volume. I mean, we have 3,900 projects a quarter, and that's probably a lighter quarter. So it's intense.
Awesome. And I have another question here from Megan Sellers. I love this question because we did talk about data a lot, but now she's asking, how is the data input manually? How are you handling the data input that then you can get out at the end of the day? Whoever wants to take it.
That's tricky. It's so you need to collect the data. Hopefully you're collecting the data at input. And so the question is, are they require some of that information required fields in order to, sometimes people don't know the answers to that. So that's for us why we have triage. But for us, it is a little bit manual to kind of pull some of these more visual reports because you're exporting it into Excel. We're a Teams-based organization, so if I want to go put this into OneNote or something like that, there's a step that goes in between it. So there's really not like a magic button where you can say export this report and it just boom, it just shows up and it's just like visually appealing and it has everything how you want it. There's almost always some finesse that has to happen when you're pulling reports.
same for us. We do the same. I'll export to that Excel sheet, and we have some drop downs for those custom fields, and they might say other, and I'll try to go back and be like, because sometimes someone will request like a cling, but they put other as the deliverable. So I'll try to go back and adjust a little bit, but it's really not a ton. So if I didn't adjust it, it'd probably still be okay and the numbers would be fine. But yeah, I take that and then I put it in Illustrator and kind of make the pretty graphs. Um, and then kind of just lay it out in InDesign. But
Awesome. Jeremy, how are you taking the data in?
Same thing. I just have Excel set up with filters, and I basically have a master Excel file that I use each quarter that breaks out each month separately, and then I can roll it up into the big numbers. It just makes it pulling it easier because I can pull at the end of each month and then just compile it at the end. And then once I have the data sets that I need, I've been using Canva to really build the charts because they have some pretty fun charts to build that are all, we've got brand kits built in there and everything. So the
Awesome.
nice thing is when you hover over those pie charts in Canva, it tells you what the property is and what the value is. So it's much more robust than what the screenshot makes it look like. So,
Well, one thing also that I want to say to that question is we had maybe like a month ago a roundtable on requests, right? And one thing that got brought up is that requests is probably the best way for you to get the data in. Just ask whatever you need to know, whatever you want to segment at the end of the year, ask that question up front. Not 100% of the time people are going to know the answers right away, but that will be probably close to 85 to 90% of all the data that you need. You can ask up front on the request.
Yep.
Always a suggestion that we make. Going to Alicia Smith. After doing some initial data mining, what kind of reports did you find having to run that you didn't anticipate needing? So any reports that after you took a look at your data, any reports are like, oh, now I have to go search for this that you didn't really anticipate?
I'd say most of mine came from like it started with projects closed and rushes, and it grew to projects open because the closed report didn't really indicate the true number of rush jobs that were open that month. So I had to change it and do that. And then that's what led to closed on time report, led to pulling the first proof report. So it's kind of been a trickle down effect to get that full picture for each project as it went along, like the project life cycle. So it's been it's really been most of the ones that I'm pulling came from the first two.
Yeah, I would say one tricky thing that we ran into was we want to measure requests, but there is an ability to add a project without going through the request project. So like if you're actually in a campaign, you can pop a project in there. And so our number, we didn't feel like our numbers were adding up. The number of requests we were coming in versus the number of projects we were closing out, the math wasn't really working for us. So it was kind of an aha moment for us to realize that we weren't counting the projects that were opened up directly without going through the request process. So that was one of the aha moments that we had.
I love that because that is a question that Anna McBriar asked that we're getting into those inconsistencies that maybe we're tracking data of things that we're asking a request, but then people are opening projects without requests. How we're tracking that data? That is a great point that you made. I think making some of the custom fields require that every project we should be able to answer this question, and sometimes it's other or not applicable or something like that, but that question should be there for the things that you track are very important. So great point, Pete. Callie, did you?
I just said that's what we do.
Chrissy has a question. She says, how do you quantify in Litho that a request is a rush? Are we using priorities? Are we using tags? Are we using custom fields? What are we using?
We use priority, that priority. Yep.
We have priority too. We actually have two. We have one that's rush and one that's late, which is something that came out of the one report. And awesome. Late means lack of planning. Rush means they have a concert that they're not selling tickets for that they need to get a social ad out for. So we kind of rushes have a pretty good rationale and reason behind it. Late is just they didn't plan properly, so now we're in a bind, essentially.
Gotcha. Now, Chris Rogers has, hello, this is a good discussion. Well, thank you. One, what fields do you pull for a rush request? I think we just kind of answered that one. And then two, do you use custom fields to pull this information? Is anybody here using custom fields for a rush or not necessarily? I see Pete nodding his head.
We kind of do. We have one question that one of the things that we do is if somebody has a deadline, and we ask if it's a hard deadline, they have to explain why. They have to fill out a custom field, and then we can kind of pull reports on that. That's not really directly related to rush, but usually it seems like there's a correlation between hard deadlines and rush requests. And so when we pull those when we pull a report that where somebody used a custom field to say that yes, this is there is no flexibility on this deadline, then we can get a pretty good idea.
Awesome. Next, Christian also asks, do you look at number of deliverables to help measure a project? Do you pull this at the request level or completed project report? Anybody looking at number of deliverables to measure anything here on the report side?
No, but I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. I wouldn't even know where to start for me. But yeah, I wouldn't mind looking at that.
Full disclosure, Kelly sent me an email this week asking me about this very question.
I tried to pull a report.
Where should she pull it?
I couldn't get it to work, so that she figured it out. No, you told me what to do. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, sorry.
Fine.
I feel like I interrupted Pete. He was about to say something.
Well, we try that as a custom field, just the number of deliverables, because we try to do a project as a deliverable, but obviously that's never going to work out that way. And so for us, it's traditionally like if something comes in, they want an internal communications post, they want a social post, and then they want it on the website. So there's almost always 3 deliverables that come in with probably our most common type of request. And so we want to make sure we're getting credit for the multiple deliverables that come out of that. So we did try in the past to count the requests. The problem was that when the triage team put that number in, that was great, but as I think everybody knows, that things change, and all of a sudden there's 10 deliverables that are part of that project, and nobody went in and changed that number to the updated deliverable. So we are looking at a way of possibly having the closeout step include that in there and try to find a way to track deliverables that way, because we do run it's a little bit different. Our creative team really uses LIFO with the whole routing process and the whole robust all those steps. But our social team will literally open up a job that says February social, and then they will track them as tasks within that, which sort of hurts my heart a little bit to see them do it that way, but it works for them. So we just want to make sure that we're putting in a step that counts all of those deliverables to make sure that we're getting credit for all of the work that's happening.
Yeah, you can pull, Pete, I don't know if you know that, but you can pull report on deliverables, because now you can mark any files a deliverable does not have to have come from a request. Just a quick hint. We do have only 6 minutes left, about 7 questions to go through. We're going to try to get through everything. Let's see if we can do it. I'm not promising anything. Anonymous, I feel like my team loses a lot of time to rework because requester needs change or existing assets need tweaks, for example. How can I validate that with facts through reporting? Jeremy, I'm going to call on you because I know you do a lot. Everybody's nodding their heads like, yeah, we should call Jeremy on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an accountability thing. So our process is if that project's completed, closed, and that project was delivered to the property, if they need to make changes, they're opening a new job. I mean, they can make it a rush job, that's fine, but they're opening a new job so that we have that extra project to count towards our time. That's just been our process the whole way along, so it hasn't been a learning curve for anybody. But if there's changes that need tweaked after that project's delivered, it's a new project. So
And I'll add now that with change requests, now we can track every time we make a change to the request. So if you want to validate that there's too many changes coming in and that's why things are getting delayed, just pull in request versions, everything that has more than one got to change. So great feedback
You can also,
that's
for
too easy
us,
for them, Nick.
yeah, the proof route is a big, where we catch a lot of that stuff. Like how many rounds of, when you went to send something off to proof, how many rounds of proofing did you go through? And, did you go through 2 or 3 like you should, or did you go, and literally we've had, 11 rounds of review on things. And that's when you want to be able to flag that sort of, that's when it becomes sort of a behavior issue and not really a process issue.
Awesome. I have an anonymous question here. It says, how does Litho compare with other project management tools such as Basecamp or Monday.com? Has anyone on the panel used another tool that they can compare?
We
Anybody
just
came
used
from-
Trello before, and yeah, we just outgrew Trello. So there's no comparison. Litho's 100% better. So, but I've never used, I know we did look at Monday at one time when we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, but
I think the beauty of Litho is really that this conversation, the data part of it, because there's a lot of software out there that is programs that are great at collaboration. You have collaborative spaces and you can have a lot of dialogue about it, but you're really not tracking changes as well, and you're not tracking a lot of the data that you want to be able to pull as a report later on. So we were doing it the old-fashioned way with spreadsheets and email and chat. So that was our tool before we got Litho. But we did sort of audition probably a dozen tools before we landed on Litho.
Awesome. I think I know the answer of this one because we did talk about it prior in our pre-meeting. But speaking of team size, have any of the panelists used reporting to advocate for headcount?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we have, because we kind of have a set expectation of number of projects per month, and it's been really easy to get approval when we can say, we're well beyond that. So yeah, we've definitely used it for that.
I like Michael's question here. What is the single most important metric you started tracking to improve process? Pick one. Each of you can only pick one. Michael, you threw a hard one.
I'm just gonna pick rush jobs because it did affect, like once we started sharing those with our field marketing team, the rushes did go down from those requesters. So that's the single most important, probably.
And for us, it was it's the stall report, which is kind of a similar. It's just the number of work, the amount of work that stalled really did light a fire under people and got the most results on a day-to-day basis.
I'd say for me, it's been projects closed, so I can advocate for more headcount. So
there you go. Guys, that's all that we have time for. We do have 3 questions left, but I feel like we've answered. They are about level of effort and people using. There's a different one, but Howard, get back to us. We'll get you an answer to that. And Alyssa, we touched a lot on level of effort, so I feel like we've answered that question somehow. I want to thank you guys once again for sharing not only your reports, but your knowledge with everybody. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.